This is exactly where you belong. Sit down and don't bother us. My husband snapped at me during his mom's wedding. He put a chair right next to the bathroom and pointed at it. The guests and his mother laughed. I didn't say a word. I just left. And only half an hour later, my husband and his mother were already calling me, crying. Hi, dear listeners. Welcome to the Room of Stories channel. Today's story is full of drama. It's about family secrets, where love and trust crash into jealousy and control. Picture a successful woman who built her own business from scratch, and a husband so jealous that he turned a happy family event into a moment of pure humiliation. One night, in a fancy restaurant, everything changed. That night revealed the true faces of people who had always acted like they cared. Get comfortable. This story is intense. Make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. My name is Larisa. Until recently, I thought I was just a regular woman who got a bit lucky in business. By the time I turned 35, I owned 3 restaurants in our city. But I didn't talk much about my success, especially at home. My husband, Gennady, knew I worked in the restaurant world, but he thought I was just a manager at one place. Why make him feel bad? He already felt insecure. He worked as a regular manager at a construction company. We met 3 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He seemed calm and reliable. I'd never been into wild romances. I always liked stability. And Gennady was exactly that, stable. Well, except for one thing, his mother, Valentina Petrovna. She treated her 38-year-old son like he was the center of the universe. It all started that Thursday. I stopped by Gennady's office like usual. We planned to go grocery shopping, and I also wanted to give him money for the utility bills. As always, I paid for everything, rent, food, even gas for his car. He said he was saving up for a vacation for the 2 of us. And I didn't mind. I was doing well financially. Gennady was working late in the conference room, so I decided to wait for him in the hallway near his office. That's when I overheard a conversation between some of his coworkers. Hey, Jenka asked me to lend him money again until payday, one of them said. That's the 3rd month in a row. What's going on with him? Someone else asked. Then I heard a voice I recognized. It was Mikhail. We'd met a couple of times at company events. He says his wife is greedy, Mikhail replied. She has good money, but won't help her own family. Spends everything on herself. Poor guy's struggling. I stood there frozen. What greedy wife are they talking about? I pay for everything. That's harsh, the first guy said. She looks like such a nice woman. Who would have guessed? But you never know. Some people look sweet on the outside and pinch every penny at home. Mikhail added, he says she doesn't even give him enough money for food. He has to manage on his own. I felt like the ground was slipping under my feet. So this is how Gennady explains all the loans, to make me look like a selfish wife? And I thought he was saving money for our vacation. Turns out he's just spending my money on whatever he wants and telling his coworkers lies about me. When Gennady finally came out of the meeting room, I didn't say a word. I just handed him an envelope with the money for the utility bills. He took it without even saying thank you, like always. Let's go, sweetheart, he smiled. Mom asked me to buy her some nice tea. You don't mind, right? I nodded silently, but inside I was boiling. Nice tea for mommy, with my money. And meanwhile, he tells everyone his wife is stingy. What a joke. I didn't cause a scene at home. I just started watching him more closely. And it didn't take long to see that this wasn't a one-time lie. Gennady had made himself look like a poor man stuck with a selfish wife, while living comfortably off my money. A week later, we got another surprise. At Sunday dinner, Valentina Petrovna made a big announcement. My dear children, she said proudly, I have some news. I've decided to fix my personal life. I'm getting married. Gennady nearly choked on his borscht. Mom, what are you talking about? At your age. At my age, son? I'm not ready to retire just yet, she snapped. Vladimir Stepanovich has been proposing for a month. I finally said yes. Vladimir Stepanovich was an old friend of hers, a widower, and the owner of a small auto parts store. A nice enough man. But it was clear that Valentina Petrovna wanted a big wedding. And I'd like to ask you both to help me organize the celebration, she said. Larisa, you work in the restaurant business. You probably know how to plan these things. I gave her a careful nod. Yes, I know. I definitely know how. Of course, Valentina Petrovna, and what's your budget? She hesitated. Well, you see, dear, said Valentina Petrovna, Volodya and I don't really have much money. You know how small his pension is. But we still want it to be beautiful. Maybe you and Gennady could help us out? I'm your only mother. A wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I looked at my husband. He was sitting there like someone had just asked him to donate a kidney. Mom, you know we're not millionaires either, he said, frowning. It's okay. I quickly stepped in. We'll figure something out. Valentina Petrovna lit up with a big smile. Larisa, you're golden. I always told Gennady he was lucky to have you. After dinner, when we got back home, my husband was clearly annoyed. Why did you say yes? He grumbled. We don't have money for weddings. I do, I said calmly. There you go again with your money, he snapped. You always decide everything on your own. I didn't say anything. Let him think whatever he wants. I had already decided. I was going to plan this wedding and make sure it was truly unforgettable. The next day, I started calling restaurants. I needed to find a good place that was available at the end of the month. That's when Valentina Petrovna wanted to have the wedding. Most good venues were already booked, which made sense with so little time left. The Golden Terrace is still free on the 27th, one restaurant manager told me. But it's really expensive. Probably out of your budget. The Golden Terrace. My restaurant. My most luxurious and well-known one. I bought it a year ago and I was really proud of it. But none of my husband's family knew I owned it. To them, I was just Larisa, the woman who worked in the restaurant business. Can I come take a look? I asked, acting like just another customer. Of course. Come by any time, the manager said. Right after that, I called Marina Fedorova. She's the one managing the Golden Terrace. We were college friends, and I completely trusted her with my top restaurant. The other two were run by different people. Hi, Marina, I said. I need to organize a wedding for my mother-in-law on the 27th. Marina raised an eyebrow. Your mother-in-law? In your restaurant? And she doesn't know you're the owner? Nope, I said. And she doesn't need to know, at least not yet. Huh, Marina said slowly. Why all the secrecy? I just shrugged. I want it to be beautiful. I'm not ready to explain everything to the family yet. All right, got it. We'll stay undercover, Marina smiled. What's the budget? Go all out. Make it perfect. Money's not an issue. Just set it up like a normal booking, contract, deposit, final invoice. Everything official. Why so complicated? You'll see later, I said. Just trust me. Marina nodded and pulled out her tablet. Okay, so the Golden Terrace is booked for the 27th. What's the family name? Zavarina. Valentina Petrovna Zavarina, I said. Marina wrote it down. And you'll be just a regular guest? Yes, I nodded. They shouldn't know we're connected. At least not yet. When I got home, Gennady asked, How's the search for the restaurant going? I found a place, I told him. It's called the Golden Terrace. It's a bit expensive, but it's really beautiful. He looked uneasy. How much is it? I haven't done all the math yet, I said, but I think we can handle it. Gennady shook his head. Lara, why spend so much? We can celebrate somewhere simpler. It's your mom's wedding, I reminded him. I want it to be special. Special, special, he muttered. And who's paying for it? I am. Like always, he didn't say anything, but I could see he didn't like it. By then, I didn't care anymore. Ever since I found out he'd been telling his coworkers I was greedy, something in me changed. For the next 2 weeks, I was busy planning the wedding. I arranged flowers, music, a photographer, and worked on the menu with Marina. Everything had to be perfect. Valentina Petrovna was thrilled with my effort. She praised me and Gennady every time we met. See, son, she told him. What a caring wife you have. She's doing everything for my big day. Gennady just nodded, but I could see the irritation in his eyes. He clearly didn't like that I was spending money on his mom's wedding. Even though, weirdly, it wasn't even his money. A week before the wedding, I came home earlier than usual. I had a headache and decided to take the rest of the day off. I took my keys out ahead of time so I wouldn't ring the bell, just in case Gennady was sleeping after a night shift. I opened the door quietly, took off my shoes, and then I heard his voice coming from the kitchen. He was on the phone with someone. "Mom, don't worry so much," Gennady said. "Everything will be fine." I froze. He was talking to Valentina Petrovna. "Yes, I know she's spending a lot of money," he went on. "But we'll hold out until the wedding." There was a pause. I held my breath. "Mom, don't say that. Lara's okay. She's just, well, too independent sometimes. She thinks that because she has money, she's the boss at home." Another pause. "Yes, I know. At the wedding, we'll finally put her in her place. She needs to understand who's in charge in this family." My heart sank. Put me in my place? Show who's boss. "Yes, Mom," he continued. "That's exactly what we'll do. Let everyone see she's here to support us, not control us. She's gotten too full of herself." I slowly stepped back toward the door, trying not to make a sound. I quietly put on my shoes and slipped out. Only once I was in the stairwell did I finally let myself breathe. So that was their plan. They wanted to humiliate me at the wedding I was organizing and paying for. So they wanted to show all the guests who's really in charge? Interesting. I pulled out my phone and called Marina. "Hey, just checking. Our restaurant is definitely booked for the 27th, right?" "Of course," she said.
Why?
"What's going on?" "Oh, nothing yet. Just double-checking the details." "Marina, remember how we studied psychology together back in college?" "Yeah, of course."
Why?
"No reason. Just remembering. Sometimes people act completely different from what you expect." "Lara, you're speaking in riddles. Are you okay?" "Everything's great," I said with a smile. "Actually better than I thought." I ended the call, slipped the phone into my bag, and went out for a walk around the city. I needed to think. So, Gennady and his dear mommy want to put me in my place, in my own restaurant, at her wedding, paid for with my money? All right then. Let's see who ends up putting who in their place. I still had one more week to plan everything, and I was going to make sure this wedding would be truly unforgettable, especially for the groom and his loving, manipulative son. On the morning of the 27th, I woke up with a strange feeling, like something big was about to change in my life. Gennady was already up, rushing around the closet trying to pick a suit. He looked nervous, fidgety, more anxious than usual. "Sweetheart, you didn't forget we have to be at the registry office by 11, right?" he asked while buttoning his shirt. "Mom's super stressed. She couldn't sleep all night. She's already called me 3 times. "I haven't forgotten," I replied calmly, still lying in bed. "Everything's under control. I already booked the car, prepared the flowers for the ceremony, and everything's set at the restaurant. You even called the admin yesterday, so relax. Everything's fine. By 6 p.m., all the guests will be at the Golden Terrace. Tables are set, the band's confirmed, and the photographer will be there on time." Gennady nodded, but I noticed how he kept adjusting his tie, his hands shaking a little. I figured he must have been getting ready for whatever little plan he and Mommy cooked up. After that phone call I'd overheard, I knew the day wasn't going to be easy. We had breakfast in silence. Gennady kept staring at his phone, typing something, deleting it, typing again. When I asked him questions, he only gave short, one-word answers. I acted like I didn't notice, but inside, I was bracing for whatever they were planning. We arrived at the registry office with the whole family. Valentina Petrovna was glowing in her new burgundy outfit, one I had bought for her 2 weeks ago, by the way. Vladimir Stepanovich looked very dignified, tall, well-kept, with a bit of gray stubble and serious, but kind, eyes. He carried himself like a true gentleman. I knew that for someone like Vladimir Stepanovich, someone with strong values, even a small family scandal would feel like a huge shock. So, I kept things calm. Gennady and I were there as witnesses. The ceremony was simple but touching. Valentina Petrovna even got emotional and wiped away a few tears when the registrar spoke about the importance of family and love. Vladimir Stepanovich gently kissed her hand after they signed the documents. Honestly, I was happy for her. Whatever kind of mother-in-law she's been, everyone deserves happiness, especially at her age. After the ceremony, while Vladimir was taking pictures with some friends, Valentina Petrovna hugged me tightly. "Dear Larisa," she said, "thank you for everything. You're such a kind soul. You made this day so special for us. We could have never done it without you." "Oh, come on, Valentina Petrovna," I said with a smile, fixing her collar. "This is a joyful day. I'm just glad I could help." "You really are a golden daughter-in-law," she added. And for just a second I thought she might actually mean it. But then I remembered that phone call I'd overheard, and I knew it was just another act. After that, we all went home to change for the evening party. In the car, Valentina Petrovna kept chatting excitedly about how nervous she was signing the marriage certificate, how strange it felt to get married again at her age, and how she almost forgot the words she was supposed to say. Vladimir Stepanovich just smiled and talked along with her. But Gennady was quiet, very quiet. He kept typing something on his phone the whole ride, clearly texting someone. "Who are you messaging?" I asked as we stopped at a red light. "Oh, just some friends," he mumbled, not looking up. "I'm just reminding them about the restaurant's address and the time. You know how guys can be, always forgetting stuff." "What's there to remind them of?" I asked. "I gave everyone printed invitations. Everything is written clearly." "Well, just in case," he said quickly and went back to his phone. At home, we both went to separate rooms to get ready. I spent quite a while picking my outfit. I wanted to look graceful and classy. It was still a family event, after all. I chose a dark green midi dress with lace sleeves. Simple, but elegant. Meanwhile, Gennady was in the shower, whistling some tune. His mood had definitely improved. As I was finishing up, my phone rang. It was Marina calling from the restaurant. "Lara, listen," she said, sounding worried. "A woman showed up here about 20 minutes ago. She says she was invited to the Zavarina wedding. She introduced herself as Nina Mikhailovna, a family friend, and demanded a seat at the main table." My heart dropped. Nina Mikhailovna? Where did she come from? I had personally made the guest list. There was no Nino on it. "What does she look like?" I asked, already feeling anxious. "She's around 40, Marina said. Dyed blonde. Very noticeable. Expensive red dress. Gold jewelry. Looks like she came to make a statement. She says the bride's husband invited her personally and promised her a seat at the main table. She's acting really confident, like she's some kind of VIP. I felt the blood drain from my face. The bride's husband, that's Gennady. So he invited someone behind my back, and not just anyone, but someone he wanted seated at the top table? Marina, did she give her last name? She said Vetrova. Nina Mikhailovna Vetrova. Claims she's been close to the Zavarina family for years. Vetrova. I suddenly went cold. That's Gennady's ex-wife. The same Nina he supposedly divorced 5 years ago after a 10-year marriage. The same Nina he told me he never wanted to see again. The same one he said his mother couldn't stand. "Lara, are you there?" Marina asked. "What should I do with her?" "She's insisting on a spot at the head table." "Put her at the head table," I said slowly, my voice tight. "If she was invited, then there has to be a seat." "Where exactly should I seat you?" Marina asked. "There are only 8 seats, Valentina and Vladimir, his parents, you and Gennady, and 2 close family friends. With her, it's 9. I closed my eyes and leaned against the wall. So that was their plan. Gennady invited his ex-wife and gave her my place. They weren't going to seat me with the family at all. What a perfect little setup. So smooth. "I don't know yet," I managed to say. "We'll figure it out at the restaurant. Just make sure she's welcomed properly. She's a guest, after all." "Okay," Marina said, though I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "But Lara, something's definitely off about this." "Everything's just as it should be," I said with a bitter smile. "See you tonight." I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. So this is the surprise they planned for me. Invite Gennadi's ex-wife.
Put her in my seat. Push me out of the spotlight.
Make it look like I'm just one of the helpers. Show all the guests who's really in charge. When I walked out of the bedroom, Gennadi was already dressed. He looked sharp, new suit, crisp white shirt, tie perfectly matched. You could tell he was trying to impress people. Jen, just curious. Did you invite anyone else to the wedding? I asked casually as I fastened my earrings. Anyone we didn't talk about? He paused for a second, fixing his cufflinks. In the mirror, I saw his jaw tighten. No one special, he said without turning around. Just a couple of coworkers, old childhood friends. You know, the usual. Did you invite Nina Vetrova? I asked. Gennadi turned to face me quickly. His face showed surprise, but it looked fake, like he was acting. Oh, yeah, I invited Nina too. How did you find out? He tried to smile, but it was forced and awkward. She's an old family friend, he added. Mom really likes her. They were friends even before my first marriage. That was a total lie. Valentina Petrovna hated Nina. She had told me more than once that painted-up woman nearly drove her son crazy. She was relieved when they divorced, even happier than Gennadi was. I see, I said calmly, nodding. And where is she sitting? At the head table. I don't know exactly, he stammered. Probably just with the regular guests. Okay, I said casually. Just curious. The restaurant called me and said she asked for a seat at the head table. Gennadi went pale for a second, but then quickly tried to act normal. Oh, that's strange, he said. I didn't promise her that. She probably misunderstood something. I didn't say anything else. But everything made perfect sense now. They wanted to humiliate me, quietly and politely, by bringing his ex-wife and putting her in my seat. Then they'd just sit back and watch how I'd react, like it was entertainment. We arrived at the restaurant at 5:30 p.m. The Golden Terrace looked absolutely stunning. Marina had done a fantastic job. White tablecloths, beautiful flower arrangements in soft white and cream tones, warm lighting from the chandeliers, and soft classical music playing in the background. Crystal glasses and polished silverware sparkled on every table. Everything was perfect and elegant. Oh my, how beautiful! Valentina Petrovna gasped, looking around the room. Larisa, you're a magician. How did you find a place like this? It was just luck, I said modestly. And the price, she asked. Well, I smiled. Beauty always comes with a price. We're just lucky to have such a caring daughter-in-law, said Vladimir Stepanovich, straightening his bow tie. Not every woman would take on all this work and expense. Gennadi didn't say anything, but I noticed how his eyes kept scanning the room, like he was waiting for someone to show up. By 6 o'clock, the guests started arriving. I greeted them in the hallway, showed them to the coat room, explained how to get to the dining area, and offered help if they needed anything. I felt like the real host of the evening, even though technically it wasn't my event. It was my mother-in-law's wedding, but I was the one making it all happen. The guests were mostly what you'd expect: Vladimir Stepanovich's colleagues and their wives, some of Valentina's neighbors, and Gennadi's co-workers. Everyone looked cheerful and dressed up, bringing gifts and flowers. Then she walked in. Nina Vetrova. I recognized her immediately from the few photos I had seen in Gennadi's old album.
Tall.
Slender. Probably in her early 40s. Wearing a bright red fitted dress with flawless makeup and expensive jewelry. She looked stunning, and she knew it. Excuse me, a confident voice said behind me. Can you tell me where the main hall is? I'm here for the Zavarina wedding. Of course, I replied with a polite smile. Just go straight down the hallway. By the way, I'm Nina Vetrova, she interrupted, giving me a quick, judgmental look. An old family friend, she added with a smug smile. You must be one of the event organizers? Interesting. So either she really didn't know who I was, or she was pretending not to. No, I'm Larisa, Gennadi's wife. Nina's eyes flicked over me again. For a second, she looked surprised. Then something else appeared on her face. Something like quiet satisfaction, maybe even a little triumph. Oh, "You're that Larisa," she said slowly, with a tone that was just a little too sweet. "Very nice to finally meet you. Gina told me so much about you." Gina. That nickname alone said too much. I wondered what exactly Gennady had been telling her, and why they were even in touch if he'd told me he never wanted to see her again. "Likewise," I said coolly. "Please come in." Nina nodded and walked past me, leaving a trail of expensive French perfume behind her. As I watched her go, I had a feeling this night was about to get very interesting. Inside the hall, about 30 guests had already arrived. Valentina Petrovna was glowing, surrounded by friends, flashing her new ring and accepting congratulations. Vladimir Stepanovich was thanking everyone for their kind words and offering cognac from his private stash. Gennady was hovering around nearby, but as soon as he saw Nina walk in, he made a beeline for her. I watched from a distance. They hugged like old friends. Nina leaned in and whispered something in his ear. He laughed loudly. Then, the two of them strolled toward the head table. I saw Gennady pointing to the seat next to his. I walked over to Marina, who was busy coordinating the waitstaff. "How's the seating going?" I asked in a quiet voice. Marina looked at me with concern. "That Petrova woman has already made herself comfortable at the head table," she whispered back. "She's sitting right next to your husband and acting like she owns the place." I've tried telling her, subtly, that she might be in the wrong seat, but she insisted that Gennady personally told her to sit there. I looked over at the head table. Sure enough, Nina was beside Gennady, talking animatedly, her red nails waving in the air. Gennady was laughing, nodding, totally engrossed in her. The message was loud and clear. "Have you set a place for me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Not yet," Marina said hesitantly. "Gennady came over about 30 minutes ago and told me you'd be coordinating everything tonight. He said you didn't plan to sit down because you wanted everything to run perfectly."
Ah.
So that's how they played it. According to him, I was no longer the host or even a guest. I was just part of the staff, and it was my idea. How convenient. "I see," I said with a calm nod. "Well then, let's see how this plays out." At 6:30 sharp, the banquet officially began. What followed was an hour-long mix of toasts, fancy food, and quiet humiliation. The guests took their seats at the beautifully decorated tables. I stayed near the wall by the entrance, silently watching it all unfold. At the main table, there were exactly 8 seats, just as Marina had said. In the center sat the newlyweds, Valentina Petrovna and Vladimir Stepanovich. Next to them were Vladimir's elderly parents. Then came Gennady sitting with Nina and 2 more of their family friends. My seat? Not there. Not anywhere. The formal speeches started. Vladimir Stepanovich was the first to raise a toast. He thanked everyone for coming and spoke from a heart. It was short, but warm and honest. Then Gennady stood up with his champagne glass. "Dear guests," he said in a serious tone, "I want to congratulate my mother on this beautiful day. Mom, you deserve all the happiness in the world. To you." Everyone clapped and lifted their glasses. Nina looked at him like he had just recited poetry. She smiled and clinked her glass with his dramatically, making sure everyone saw it. After the toasts, waiters started serving cold appetizers.
I stayed at my spot near the wall.
But now people started to notice. I heard 2 women whispering at one of the nearby tables. "Why isn't Gennady's wife sitting with the family?" "I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe she works here?"
What? No way.
"She's his wife. How awful to make your own wife work during a family celebration. And who's that blonde sitting next to him? They seem really close." "I don't know, but it doesn't look right." Their whispers stung, but I stayed calm. I wanted to see how far this game would go. Some guests, family friends who actually knew me, came over. They looked confused and asked why I wasn't sitting with the others. I smiled and said I was just coordinating the event, but I could see the confusion and sympathy in their eyes. Meanwhile, Gennady kept pretending to be the perfect son, laughing, talking with everyone, while his mother accepted compliments and completely ignored the fact that I was standing there like the hired help. An hour later, when the champagne had loosened people up and the room felt more relaxed, Valentina Petrovna stood up and raised her glass. "My dear guests," she said loudly, "I want to thank everyone who helped make this beautiful evening happen, especially my daughter-in-law, Larisa." Everyone turned to look at me. I nodded slightly, expecting some basic words of thanks. But what came next shocked everyone. "Little Larachka really tried her best," she said in a tone that sounded like a teacher scolding a student. "She ran around shopping, made phone calls, searched for the right place. She did what she could." People began shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "She doesn't have the best taste," Valentina continued with a small shrug. "But that's not her fault. Not everyone is born with a sense of beauty. Still, she's hardworking and that counts." The room went quiet. Everyone could feel the insult behind her words. Then, she smiled and gestured to the decorations around the room. "Of course," she added, "all the beautiful things you see here. That was my idea." She kept talking, showing off like it was all her work. I told her what kind of flowers to get, how to set the table, what music to play, even which napkins to choose. Valentina Petrovna said proudly. At first she argued. She added with a smirk, saying she knew better. But I stood my ground, and just look at the results. She waved her hand dramatically, like she had designed everything herself. I stood frozen, my face burning with anger and shame. This was my restaurant. My money paid for this entire wedding. It was Marina, following my instructions, who arranged all the flowers, the table settings, the music, every little detail. And now Valentina Petrovna was taking all the credit and mocking me in front of everyone, hinting that I had no taste. "Well, thank you, Larachka, for all your effort," she finished loudly, raising her glass in my direction. "You've been a very diligent assistant." The guests started shifting in their seats. It was clear many of them felt awkward after such backhanded gratitude. Nina gave me a smug little smile and whispered something to Gennady, who laughed. I took a deep breath, pulled myself together, and walked toward the head table. I wasn't going to just stand there like I didn't belong. This was a family event and I was his wife. "Gennady," I said quietly, standing behind him, "maybe there's a place for me at the table?" He turned around slowly and gave me a look like I was bothering him. "Lara, come on," he said, annoyed. "Can't you see there's no space?" He talked to me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Besides," he added, "you're in charge of the event. You should be standing, making sure everything runs smoothly." "I'm your wife," I said firmly. "My place is next to you." Valentina Petrovna jumped in right away. "Oh, Larachka," she said in a condescending tone, "don't be difficult. There really is no space. Everything was planned long ago." "We do appreciate all your help," she added. "But the family table is for the closest people." She looked right at Nina and smiled. "Nina Mikhailovna is very close." I couldn't stop myself. I nodded toward Gennady's ex-wife, making it clear I understood what was going on. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Guests at nearby tables stopped talking. Everyone could sense something was about to happen. Nina just raised an eyebrow and watched me, curious. Then, without a word, Gennady stood up from the table. His face was tight with irritation, like I had ruined his big night. He walked to the back of the room where there were a few spare plastic chairs set out for the staff. He grabbed one, carried it over, and set it down in front of everyone, right next to the head table. Like that was supposed to be my place. "Here," Gennady said loudly, so everyone in the room could hear. "Here's your chair." He dragged over a cheap yellow plastic chair and placed it right next to the bathroom door, pointing at it dramatically. "This is exactly where you belong. Sit down and don't get in our way," he snapped. The whole room went dead silent. Someone gasped. Someone else covered their mouth in shock. And then people started laughing. Nina giggled first, covering her mouth with fake surprise. Then Valentina Petrovna laughed out loud. Within seconds, people at nearby tables were chuckling. "Well, Jenka, you're something else," one of Gennady's friends from work said. "Putting your wife in her place. Good job." "Exactly," said another woman. "She needs to know her limits." "She just won't stop," Valentina Petrovna added, wiping tears of laughter. We're trying to have a family celebration here, and she's making a scene. Nina looked at me with open satisfaction in her eyes. Gennady stood next to the plastic chair near the bathroom and waited for me to sit down like some obedient little servant. I looked at that yellow chair. It was 2 meters from the toilet door. Then I looked at the faces around the room, some laughing, some smirking, all watching like it was a show. I looked at my husband, the man who had just humiliated me in front of everyone. At my mother-in-law, who had stolen credit for everything I did and was now laughing at me like I was a joke. At Nina, his ex-wife, who was sitting in the seat that should have been mine. And then I saw Marina. She was standing quietly in the back corner by the service door. Through the glass, she could see everything in the room. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide. She knew the truth. She knew that I was the owner of this restaurant. She knew that I had paid for this whole wedding. She had watched her boss, her friend, get treated like garbage. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't tell anyone who I really was, or how much money I had spent, or that this was my restaurant. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just turned around and walked to the exit.
Calm.
Quiet. Dignified. Behind me, the laughter slowly faded. People were whispering, confused. I heard someone ask where I was going. Gennady waved it off like it was nothing. She's just mad about the joke, he said. She'll cool off and come back. Where else would she go? But I wasn't going to come back. Not ever. I reached the lobby, picked up my handbag from the coat check, and stepped outside into the cool evening air. It was 8 p.m. The wedding had only been going for an hour and a half. And I, the woman who paid for it all, was walking away from my own restaurant, thrown out in front of 30 people. Like I was nothing more than a nuisance. Like a beggar. I took out my phone and called Marina. Lara, she answered right away, sounding worried. Where are you? What's going on? I saw you leave. I'm outside, I said calmly. Marina, I have a business proposal for you. A business proposal? She asked, confused. Lara, come back right now. This is your wedding, your guests. No, I replied coldly. This isn't my wedding. And honestly, it's not even a wedding at all. You'll understand in a moment. What do you mean? Marina asked again, sounding shaken. Lara, please just come back. This is a family celebration. Marina, I said, still calm. Do you remember who owns the Golden Terrace?
Pause.
You do, of course. It's one of your 3 restaurants. But what does that have to do with? Tell me, who is supposed to pay for today's banquet? Well, you paid everything in advance according to the contract, she said. The final payment was supposed to be made today. We agreed to keep it official, just like with regular clients. She stopped talking. I could tell she was starting to put things together. Exactly, I said. And did my husband come by this morning with any updates about the payment? Another pause. This one longer. He did, Marina admitted quietly. Around 11 a.m. He said you were sick, had a fever, and wouldn't be able to make the final payment. He asked if it could wait until Monday. I closed my eyes. So it wasn't just about humiliating me. They had also planned to skip the final payment for the whole wedding. Gennady really thought that after the way they treated me, I'd just stay quiet and walk away. Or worse, that I'd pay the rest myself and thank them for letting me be part of their special day. And what did you say to him, Marina? I told him we'd wait for your call. I said there'd be no payment delays unless you approved it. Good girl, I said. Now listen carefully. Okay, I want you to go back inside and tell everyone the banquet is over. Immediately. What? Lara, are you serious? Completely. Tell them there was a technical issue with the payment, that the restaurant services are suspended. Ask the guests to leave within 15 minutes. Lara, there are 30 people in there. The wedding is in full swing. They just started eating. Exactly, I said coldly. Marina, I was just publicly humiliated in my own restaurant at an event I paid for and treated like I was part of the cleaning crew. Do you think that's okay? She was quiet for a moment, then sighed heavily. No, of course not. That was awful. I saw the whole thing. Then don't say, but, Marina, are you my friend or not? Of course I am. Then do this for me. And get security to help move things along if needed. I heard her take a long breath. Okay, I'll give you 15 minutes to change your mind. But if you don't, I'll do it. I won't change my mind. I spent the next 15 minutes walking around the restaurant parking lot. The cool evening air helped clear my head. I thought about how fast everything can fall apart, how something that feels solid can vanish in seconds. 3 years of a relationship. 1 year of living together. And it all ended like this, with public humiliation in front of strangers. But what shocked me the most wasn't just the humiliation, it was how planned it all was. I already knew Gennady was weak and did whatever his mother wanted. But this wasn't just some rude moment. This was a whole performance. They didn't just insult me, they set it up. They invited his ex-wife. They sat her in my seat. They made me stand by the wall like some helper. And then Gennady pointed to a chair by the toilet and told me to sit there. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. After 15 minutes, my phone rang. I'm ready, Marina said. Are you sure? Absolutely, I said. Okay.
Hold on.
It's starting. I moved closer to the restaurant and stood where I could see inside through the glass door of the service entrance. Marina entered the banquet hall from the front, holding a microphone. The music stopped. Dear guests, I heard her voice loud and clear, even through the glass. I have to share some unfortunate news. There has been a technical issue with the payment for tonight's banquet. Because of this, we must stop service and ask all guests to leave within 15 minutes. A wave of shock swept through the room. People started murmuring, looking around in confusion. I saw Gennady jump up from the table and storm toward Marina. Valentina Petrovna stood too, waving her arms and clearly yelling. I couldn't hear everything through the glass, but from their faces and wild gestures, they were angry and demanding answers. Marina stayed calm. She pointed to some documents. Then the restaurant manager came in with 2 security guards. Guests started getting up. Some looked angry, others just confused. A few tried to ask the waiters what was going on, but all staff had been told to say nothing. They politely asked everyone to leave. Nina sat frozen at the table like she'd just woken up from a dream. The smug smile she'd had earlier was completely gone, replaced by confusion. Valentina Petrovna rushed from guest to guest, trying to explain something, trying to stop them from leaving. But no one stayed. 10 minutes later, people were filing out of the restaurant. Vladimir Stepanovich's parents were the first to leave. The older couple looked embarrassed, sad. Then the neighbors, co-workers, and friends followed. Everyone looked confused. I heard people whispering. What's happening? They say there's a payment issue. Wait, they canceled the banquet? We don't get it either. The last to leave were Gennady, Valentina Petrovna, Vladimir Stepanovich, and Nina. They looked completely lost. And furious. Gennady was trying to explain something to Vladimir Stepanovich, who just kept shaking his head. I stood in the shadows between the parked cars, watching the whole thing. And I smiled a little to myself. I wondered how long it would take before they stopped blaming each other and realized who caused that technical error. The guests left quickly. No one wanted to stay in the parking lot and get involved in someone else's family drama. Valentina Petrovna tried to keep some of her close friends, inviting them to her house to continue the celebration. But everyone politely declined and went home. About 30 minutes later, only 4 people were left standing near Gennady's car. Gennady, his mother Valentina Petrovna, Vladimir Stepanovich, and Nina. They were arguing loudly about something when my phone rang. It was Gennady. Half an hour after everything collapsed, my husband and his mother were now calling, crying, begging me to come back and fix things. I didn't rush to answer. Let him wait. The phone kept ringing, then stopping, then ringing again. On the 4th try, I finally picked up. Lara, Gennady shouted, his voice shaky like he was about to cry. Where are you? What happened at the restaurant? It's a disaster. I don't know, I said calmly. What happened? What do you mean what happened? They kicked everyone out. They said there were problems with the payment. But you paid for everything. I paid the advance, I said. The rest was supposed to be paid today. But you said everything was already covered. I said everything was organized. But as for the payment, Gennady, did you, by any chance, ask the restaurant to delay the payment this morning? There was a long pause. I just wanted to check, he finally muttered. You lied to the restaurant staff and told them I was sick and couldn't come. Yes, Lara, but come on, that's not the point. The point is the party was ruined. Mom's freaking out. Vladimir Stepanovich is in shock. Please come back. We need to fix this. I'm not coming back. What do you mean? You're my wife. Oh, now I'm your wife? Where was that energy an hour ago? When you gave me a plastic chair and sat me next to the toilet? Another pause. I could feel him realizing the real reason the banquet was shut down. Lara, it was just a joke. Don't take it so seriously. A joke? You publicly humiliated me in front of everyone. You told me to sit quietly by the toilet. Was that part funny too? Mom was just stressed. She didn't mean anything by it. So, you're saying none of it was malicious? No, of course not. Gennady, where's Nina now?
What?
What does Nina have to do with this? Just answer the question. Where is she? She's here. Standing next to me. Why? Tell her this. That seat at the main table suited her perfectly. Especially sitting next to someone else's husband. Lara, what are you even talking about? I mean, the show is over. Everyone can take off their masks now. This is nonsense. Lara, you're being dramatic. Please just come back and we'll talk calmly. I'm not coming. And I'm not talking to you ever again. Goodbye, Gennady. Lara, don't hang up. I ended the call and immediately blocked Gennady's number. Then I blocked Valentina Petrovna's number too, just in case. A few seconds later, my phone rang again from an unknown number. Clearly, Gennady was using someone else's phone. I hung up and blocked that number too. For the next 2 hours, the calls kept coming from different numbers. One by one, I blocked every single one. Finally, the phone went quiet. I could finally go home in peace. At home, I changed into something comfortable, made some tea, and sat by the window. Outside, the city lights glowed quietly. Everything looked peaceful and calm. It was hard to believe that just hours ago, I had been standing next to a toilet, holding a plastic chair. Around 11 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Gennady, standing there with flowers and a guilty face. Lara, please open the door, he said softly. I need to talk to you. I said nothing. He kept ringing the bell for another 10 minutes, then stopped. From the window, I saw him pacing nervously near the entrance, smoking. Then he sat on a bench. It looked like he was planning to wait all night. I went to bed. In the morning, he was still sitting there. The flowers were now in the trash. And Gennady looked exhausted and miserable. Around 9 a.m., the landline rang. I picked it up. Lara, my dear. Valentina Petrovna's voice came through, shaking and tearful. What have you done? What happened yesterday was awful. We never meant to hurt you. It was all just a misunderstanding. Hello, Valentina Petrovna. What exactly was so terrible? The wedding was ruined. The guests were kicked out. Vladimir Stepanovich is still in shock. He says nothing like this has ever happened in our family. I understand. But why do you think I ruined the wedding? Who else? She snapped. Gennady said you were upset over some little thing, and now you're getting revenge. What little thing? A pause. Well, the chair thing. But it was just a joke. We weren't trying to be cruel. Another joke, I said quietly. Valentina Petrovna, tell me honestly, were you planning to announce something important at the party? What does that have to do with anything, Larachka? What matters now is that we fix this issue with the restaurant. Maybe you could talk to the staff and explain that it was a mistake. Just answer the question. Were you planning to announce something? Another long pause. Well, yes. I was going to tell everyone that I'm giving Gennady the apartment so the young couple could have a home. I see. And that has nothing to do with the fact that if there was ever a divorce, I wouldn't be able to claim the apartment. Larachka, where are you getting these ideas? What divorce? That's nonsense. Do you remember our conversation last week? When you and Gennady were discussing how to put me in my place and show me who's in charge. Dead silence. You must have misunderstood, she stammered.
No.
I understood everything perfectly. You planned to humiliate me in front of everyone. You invited Gennady's ex-wife, took me off the guest list, made me stand by the wall like a servant, and then told me to sit near the toilet. And you did all of this using my money, in my restaurant, at an event I planned. Tell me, did I get anything wrong? Silence. Well, she said, finally, in a small voice. We didn't want to hurt you. We just wanted to remind you of your place. I realized that in the end, everyone got what they deserved. But how are we supposed to explain all this to people? Valentina Petrovna asked. What will I tell Vladimir Stepanovich? Tell him the truth, I replied calmly. That you tried to humiliate your daughter-in-law using her own money, but it backfired. Larachka, please, she said in a soft voice. You're a kind girl. Can't you forgive an old woman? Yesterday, you called me stupid in front of everyone, took credit for my work, and laughed when your son told me to sit near the toilet. And now you're asking me to forgive that. It was just emotions. Pre-wedding stress, she said weakly. No, I said. It was planned cruelty. And now you can deal with the consequences yourselves. I hung up and unplugged the home phone. The calls didn't stop all day. They came from different numbers, probably people they asked to call me. But I didn't answer any of them. That evening, Marina came over with a bottle of wine and a cake. How's my favorite warrior doing? She joked, hugging me. I'm okay, I smiled. Calm, actually. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. Any regrets about what happened yesterday? Just one, I said. That I didn't do it sooner. We sat in the kitchen, opened the wine, and started talking. So, what are you going to do about Gennady? She asked. Are you really divorcing him?
Yes.
I'm filing the papers tomorrow. Do you think he'll go along with it? If he doesn't, let him try. I have witnesses and security camera footage from the restaurant. Everything was recorded. Every single moment. Marina laughed. I didn't even think about that. So there's actual proof. Yes, I said. If anyone tries to blame me for ruining the celebration, I'll show the recording in court. Let's see how Gennady explains putting his wife at a table next to the toilet. We finished our wine and talked about business. Marina suggested expanding the restaurant, maybe even opening a new one. As I walked her to the door, I said, I think last night was the beginning of a new life. And I really like it. The next day, I filed for divorce. As soon as Gennady found out, he rushed to my building and started shouting into the intercom. Lara, what are you doing? Let's fix this. We can talk.
No, Gennady.
We can't fix it. Why not? All this over one stupid fight. This wasn't just a fight. You humiliated me in front of everyone. That's not a fight, it's the end. But Lara, it was my mistake. I admit it.
I'm sorry.
It won't happen again. It's too late. But we've been together for 3 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means I wasted 3 years of my life. Then, I won't give you the divorce. I'll go to court. Perfect, I said. I'll bring the restaurant's security footage. Let the judge see how you treated your wife. Do you really want that video shown in court? There was a long pause. What video? The security cameras at the restaurant, I said. I thought of that as soon as you started your little show. Everything was recorded. How you invited your ex-wife, sat her in my place, and told me to sit near the toilet. Perfect footage for a courtroom. You recorded it? He asked, his voice low.
No.
The CCTV system runs automatically. And by the way, it records sound too very clearly. Another pause. Okay, he finally said quietly. I won't fight the divorce. Smart decision. The divorce went quickly and without any problems. Gennady didn't try to claim anything, probably because he knew that once the court saw that video, any demands would look ridiculous. About a month after the divorce, a lawyer friend of mine called. Larisa, I've got interesting news, she said. Your ex-husband and his mother contacted me. They wanted to sue you. For what? I laughed. For emotional distress, she said. They're saying you ruined the wedding on purpose to embarrass them. I couldn't stop laughing. What did you tell them?
I asked.
I refused to take the case, she said. I told them their behavior was so inappropriate that no court would take their side. After watching the video, it was obvious they got exactly what they deserved. So, the video made it all clear?
Crystal clear, she said.
A husband publicly humiliating his wife is a valid reason for divorce and for compensation. And they were trying to claim the opposite. How did they react? I asked. Valentina Petrovna started crying. Gennady tried to say it was all just a joke. I asked him if he thought putting a chair next to a toilet for his wife in front of guests was funny. He went silent after that. They never contacted me again. Later that evening, I sat in my new restaurant. Yes, Marina and I had really opened a second location. Business was great, and I finally felt happy and free. On the table was a newspaper with the classified section open. In the dating ads, I spotted a familiar name, Gennady, 38, manager. Looking to meet a serious woman for a relationship. I wondered, did he mention that he likes to seat his wives next to toilets? Did he say that his mother thinks daughters-in-law are useless nobodies? Or that he borrows money from coworkers and blames it on his greedy wife? Probably not. He saves those details for later. I folded the paper and tossed it in the trash. I had a new life, new dreams, and total freedom. Let Gennady look for his next victim for his jokes. I wonder if he'll tell her about Nina Petrova, or how he thinks it's important to put a woman in her place, or how he lived off his wife's money while complaining about her behind her back. But that's no longer my problem. My story with the Zavornik family ended the day I walked out of the Golden Terrace with my head high. Let them remember for the rest of their lives that humiliation has a cost, and sometimes it's too high for the ones who planned it. 6 months later, I found out Valentina Petrovna and Vladimir Stepanovich got divorced. People said he couldn't live with the shame of that wedding and stopped trusting her or her family. Gennady moved back in with his mother. Word is, he still tells his friends his wife was unstable. As for Nina Petrova, she vanished after that night. I guess she realized that being part of that family would cost her more than she was willing to pay. And me? I opened a 4th restaurant. I live peacefully, successfully, and most importantly, without plastic chairs by toilets and without men who think humiliating their wives is funny. Sometimes justice really does win, especially when it has security cameras
and a good lawyer.